Let me see if I can put the new video on YouTube, and then we'll start. It's only 11:03 anyways. Ilaria, your video should be on it. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the one that says simulations. It starts with simulations.
Yes.
2 minutes and 17 seconds.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Right. But no problem. Glad I didn't have to. Glad I didn't forget your video actually. Nina, yes, we've bounced the links on Slack and by email. Although your email came after mine, so I wonder if your email, if I emailed again an expired link. Is that what happened, Nina? Did the email that I sent this morning have an expired link? I thought I got the new link from Rachel, but maybe we were still trying to figure out how to get a new link. How about this? Because that was the other time. Oh no, I sent a Zoom link this morning, so everything, so I don't need to resend another email. Yeah, so Nina, look at the TVS Slack. There should be updated links coming there. All right, I think the rate at which people are showing up has slowed down. We have almost 30 participants. I do expect a few more might show up, but I think we might perhaps start. What do you think, Rach? All right. So thanks, everybody. This is the second TVS workshop, which is organized by the TVS software, the second TVS software workshop, which is organized by the TVS software task force. I don't have any slides or any real formal presentation to start, but I want to acknowledge and thank all of the members of the task force that have been working on planning and organizing this meeting. The task force has been set up with the intent of providing an effective support to the many groups that are developing software for TVS. Many of them are developing software as part of an in-kind contribution, which I think upwards of 10, maybe 12 software packages are slated for TVS, with TVS as a recipient, between software packages and directable software efforts, and as well as a number of people that work within TVS and are already in the data rights holder community, but are planning on building software that is TVS specific, or building versions of software that are designed to really support the work of TVS. So this puts TVS in the position of having to manage a lot of software, which is not trivial, because we're not trained for that typically as astrophysicists or as members of the LSST community. And so we instantiated a task force to understand how to support the software building teams and make sure that we help them building software that is maximally relevant, maximally usable, and maximally effective. As part of that, the software task force is designing requirements for each software team of what they need to deliver in the course of building the software to TVS, to the TVS leadership. And so what I'm going to do for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to present a new TVS document, which is a template for all the software teams. It's a software requirement document. It should be the first exercise that a team that is building software engages in to understand what they need to build and specify what the software will look like and what the requirements are, so that then in construction phase they can comply to these specifications. The reason why I'm presenting it here at this workshop, even though all of you are software writers, or not all of you will actually use this template to build the software document requirement, is because in order to build it, all the software teams need to really connect with the community, understand what the needs of the community are, so that they can fulfill those needs, and what the modality of access the community can is maximally helpful to the community, and also thinking about Rubin software, how to connect that with the rest of the Rubin software environment. So let me just very briefly present what the overall schedule for today is. Let me just get some graphical aid in the form of the image that I posted on Slack and screen share it from my Slack. So we're going to present this SRD document. We are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the need for it and what purpose it serves. Primarily, my interest here, my aim here is to make sure that this document is not daunting and is not perceived as something that is imposed upon the groups, but that is really perceived as something that is designed to help the groups building software smoothly and effectively. We're going to hear from the first software team, TVS software teams that have engaged in surveys to collect user stories and user input in order to then build their version of the software requirement document. And then we have a series of videos that have been prepared by the software teams that are engaged or engaging in software building. There's about 11 videos online. They're 2 minutes each. And what we ask is that on your time, we take a break, you grab a cup of coffee or a cup of orange juice or whatever is your beverage of choice, and you watch whichever ones of these videos you think are going to be maximally useful to you. The titles try to describe very briefly what the software is aimed at in terms of like what science area or what kind of software it is. So pick the ones that you think are going to be maximally helpful to you, to your science. Watch the 2 minutes video and consider what kind of input you can give to the software building teams to help them build a software that would be useful to you. So you, as the user of the software, can guide the construction of the software. At the same time, if you are a software team, a software building team, we ask that you think of 3 specific questions that you can ask the community if they come to you and simply ask you, how can I help you? So I'm going to repeat this for clarity. If you don't build software, your task between 8:40 and 9 a.m. Pacific time, 11:40 and 12, 17:40 and 18, depending on your time zone. Your task is to just watch as many of those videos as you want and can, to understand what those pieces of software are about and see which teams you want to prioritize engaging with in the free form portions of the workshop, which are the ones tagged in orange here. If you are building software, we ask that you think of 3 questions that you can ask people that come to your table in the breakout rooms and want to engage with you, but might not have direct input, or might even have direct input, but you also should have specific questions that maximally help you building the most relevant software. You see here that there are 2 blocks in orange. Orange means we're going to gather town and we have informal interactions. We originally slated this workshop for 3 + 3 hours. but we also don't want to overburden the community with commitments. So we downscope the workshop to 2 + 2 hours, 2 hours today and 2 hours tomorrow. But if you feel like you need more time, if you feel like you need more time with your software team, if you have community members that are still talking to you, we're going to keep the Gather Town open, and we're going to have some people sticking around to help you if there are any issues for one more hour. Tomorrow, when we meet, we want to hear from the breakout rooms. So the software teams that have talked to the community and the community members that have talked to the software team, what worked, what didn't work, what input has been gathered, what input has not been gathered yet and needs to be gathered on during the day tomorrow. We will spend some time talking about the link, which is an initiative supported by the Templeton Foundation, by the Simon's Future Foundation through the LSST Corporation. It's a network of institutes that is supported specifically to hire software engineers that work with scientists and build Rubin community software. So software that is needed by the Rubin community to turn the Rubin LSST data into science. What we want to do here is think about how we can interface with the Link initiative as TVS and TVS software builders and software users. And what is our strategy to engage with them, and how we can think we can maximally benefit from each other's presence. We want to save some time for unconference style discussion. So we want to hear what's missing from this workshop, see if we can arrange and make it happen in this workshop or put it on the schedule for the next workshop. And then we'll leave more space for the community to interact informally on Gather Town. Are there any questions on the schedule? Or any concerns about the schedule? Goes in 3, 2, 1. All right. So some of the activities that the software task force has engaged in, let me get the document under my eyes, just give me 1 second, is the creation of a template for the software teams called the Software Requirement Specification document, SRS, SRD. We have, there's some variations on this name, but this is a document that is designed to define the requirements for a software. I'll get into what the requirements are in a second. Let me get this out of my tabs and screen share it again. I think I said this before, but at some point I was teaching a class and I found out that the students were playing bingo with how many tabs I had open on that given day while I was lecturing. So this document is available through the TVS website. On the TVS website, we have a tab documents where we collect all of the software documents for TVS. There is also a short link, which I will post on the chat later, because if I look for it now, it got overwritten by the links with Gather Town, and if I look for it now, I will waste too much time. The document is fairly long, but I want to make sure that people don't feel like it's, again, an imposition or a burden on them. We ask that each team thinks thoroughly about how they're building their software before they engage in writing code and delivering products to the community. We think that this is the standard way in which software is being built, in the correct way in which software is being built. And it starts with the creation of one such document. We got this document, the original version, as you can see in the credits that are somewhere here. We got this document from the IEEE, but we specifically modified the document for the TVS needs. In a software requirement document, there are many things that really are not needed for Rubin, such as, for example, concerns about how one can pay for the software, or what are the charges for using the software. Of course, in the context of Rubin, all of our software will be free access, but there are different concerns, such as, for example, how is the software interfacing with the Rubin environment, and particularly with the Rubin Science platform, that need to be addressed, that were missing from that generic document. So the software task force has engaged in modifying this document for the TVS specific needs. Some of the things that I would like to highlight, first of all, I want to highlight this specific sentence that is at the start of the document. This sentence was written together with the help of some of the people that are building the Rubin Science platform. Particularly, I talked to Lian and Guy about this. Because Rubin is enabling access to the data and through this Rubin Science platform, primarily and perhaps even almost exclusively, it is important that any software that is being built thinks about how they can interface, be accessed through and accessed by the RSP. And there are many ways to do that. You can do that through an API. This could be software that could be installed locally. And we want every team to think about it. We also want to make sure, because of this RSP context, that the teams are aware about how the Rubin Science platform is designed and try to leverage solutions that have been embraced by the Rubin Science platform whenever possible and whenever available. A fairly straightforward example of this is, imagine that the software wants to access data from other sources other than specifically Rubin data. There is a specific way in which the RSP interfaces with catalogs. It uses the tap system and tap commands, and we want to make sure that the software teams, whenever possible, consider data retrieval being implemented through the same system as the Rubin Science platform. This will enable a more seamless interaction with the RSP and a more effective user experience, as the users do not have to change the way in which they do things, whether they are on the RSP, generically on the RSP, or on the RSP while using also the design software. I would recommend that people that are considering building software, but also people that are using the software, take a look, perhaps not at all of the document, out of the document template, but at least at the table of content, to see what kind of information that teams are trying to gather from interactions with you, and what kind of information is relevant to you. What are the parts of this that you can influence? Specifically, user classes and characteristics is one of the user-oriented elements of this document. User documentation, etc. User interfaces, etc., etc. I think this is probably all that I wanted to share about the document at a high level. I put in the chat the long link to the document. We also have a bit.ly short link to the document, which is a little bit more digestible. We do welcome comments, especially at this stage. The document has just been released, by which I mean we just provided a published link through this. This is a Google Doc, of course, at its origin. It has a published link, but we can still modify it. Nobody has finished the document and delivered it to us yet. So if you see anything that you think should be modified or should be added, please let us know. And as Rachel pointed out, the document is also accessible through the web page. Actually, Rachel points out something else. The document is also accessible through the TVS generic web page under documents. You can download a copy of the document. Yes, I will add. So you're right. This is a published link, so you cannot download it. But I will add on the TVS webpage under document. I will add the link to the downloadable, to the original Google Doc, so that you can download it. Are there any questions about this document, its purpose, and its or any concerns about it, especially from the people that had not seen it before? Alex.
Yes, hi everyone. Okay,
How
so
are you?
I have a question right away, and I had it even before when I looked at this document like a few hours ago. This excellent statement that we have to be compliant with RSP developed solutions, it's excellent, I fully support it, but it raises a very important question. Since from what I get, it's not even fully defined yet what will be the functionality of RSP in terms of possibility of using API, even authorization of RSP, so that we could ensure the data rights within our software. So it's an excellent initiative, but how can we say what we will be reusing if we don't even know yet what will be implemented within RSP?
Yep, I hear you. So we have put, TVS Software Task Force, TVS leadership have put a fair amount of, sorry, I'm trying to get a video, so I think you may get some noises. We've put some pressure on the RSP team, on the team, the Rubin team that is building the RSP, on keeping us up to date about what the developments, how the development is proceeding and what the different choices that are being made are. And what you heard, in fact, is exactly the video, the most recent video about the RSP. So as you may know, the science collaboration chairs, the chairs of the ACE science collaboration meet monthly with the project science team, and the RSP, the Rubin Science Platform, is a project of Rubin Construction. So we met with the team and we had a presentation about how the RSP stage of development is, where we were able to specifically ask some questions about, for example, access through API and things like that. We have a commitment from the RSP team to keep a line of communication open with us. So the call to all the software building team is to let us know what they need to know at any point in time, and we'll go find out, or we'll find out whether the answer exists or doesn't exist, and when it's forecasted to come, and how we can influence it. So I realize this is might not entirely alleviate your concerns. And we do realize that some questions in the software requirement document might not be answered fully until we have finalized decisions from the RSP. But we're definitely working synergistically with them. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Just, I mean, it's probably a good idea. I think I've voiced it even before on the previous software workshop, that maybe at some point we have to have some kind of, once again, workshop or something like this together with RSP people, so that we could talk to them face to face, because I believe that the requests from our team, from others team, they will be similar. So yeah, to gather them and to address them in one go.
So I have a suggestion, actually. Rach might have the link handy. Sorry, I'm going to put some pressure on you. Can you go and fetch the link? There is a community page to propose project community workshop sessions. And I think this would be a great proposal, to have a session for software builders, particularly the in-kind contributions, but more generally, anybody that is building software for the science collaborations, to meet with the RSP people and ask questions from the specific point of view, not of the user in this case. We will have talks and conversations with the RSP about the user experience, but specifically from the point of view of somebody that is building software that wants to interface with it. Alex,
okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll look into it.
Wonderful, thank you. Team.
Yeah, hello. So some of us have been through the Rubin selection process, the in-kind selection process, and so already have quite tightly defined deliverables and so on. Is this just a case of cutting and pasting those from that document into this?
So we had conversations with the team that manages the contributions, the overall Rubin team that manages the contribution, and a lot of what they're going to ask is going to be very similar to what we're going to ask. I would say at this stage, our document is a little bit more specific. We felt the need inside of the TVS software task force for something that was providing a little bit more guidance than at least the first version of the document that was required of the teams, which we thought was a little bit too high level to really help us manage the software and really ensure that the software teams were doing the necessary prep work to be on the same page as us. So I would say, and I see Rachel's hand, I definitely will let you chip in, but just I would say a lot of it is probably going to be cut and paste, but there might be additional and more specific things that we ask at this stage compared to what you've been asked so far by the Rubin team. And I think ultimately you will be asked all of the same questions. So it might be back and forth, cut and paste.
Okay.
Rach?
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce everything Federica just said. When the in-kind contributions were made, some of them are extremely well specified, some of them are actually software already written or in progress, and some of them were very much at the concept stage. And so the in-kind process had to have a form that suited all of these many stages of software. Really what we're trying to do with the requirements document is go from the concept stage to a more specified stage. And that's an iterative process, which kind of encourages people to think in more practical detail about specifically what functionality the software has to have, how users are going to interact with it, that kind of really technical detail question. Now, some of the software projects should be able to answer those questions straight away, especially if they're software that's already halfway written or maybe in progress. In other cases, it could be the first time that the authors have thought these questions through. And so, yeah, for some projects, perhaps yours is included, it might be a question of cut and paste, but we have a process here that helps all of the teams to get through that stage.
Okay, no, I mean, feedback is always useful. It's a question of how much effort we have to go to and what we can actually practically do with the time that's left available.
Absolutely, and I want to emphasize it. We really, although the document might seem a little bit daunting, the template itself might seem a little bit daunting. We really don't intend to put extra burden on the software teams, but at the same time, the software team were asking us to help them respond to the first Rubin report, and this template is a way for us to work together to get those responses ready for the teams. And like Rachel said, if your software is already built, a lot of those considerations are naturally already embedded in the software. So you just have to report on what they actually are. Rach.
Thanks. Just one more point is that although the original template seems very, very long, a lot of it is descriptive text of the sort of thing that we're asking for, but it's also not meant to be formulaic. I'm a little bit worried that you present somebody with a form and a questionnaire and they strictly limit themselves to specifically what's written. That's not the intention of a requirements document. The requirements document is really very, very flexible. And you should read it with an eye to saying, is this section relevant to the actual software that I'm trying to build or the problem I'm trying to solve? And if it isn't relevant, feel free to kick it out. So don't feel the need to religiously fill in every box on the form. If it's not terribly relevant, then it's designed to be a very malleable format. But the template has to include every possibility for every possible section of software, which is why it's so long. But don't feel it's set in stone or that you have to fill in every box.
Thank you. That's an excellent point. Yes. Are there any other questions? Goes in 3, 2, 1, done. All right, awesome. So we have a couple of teams that have already engaged in a survey. So if you are a frequent flyer on our TVS Slack page, you've seen the request for you to fill out a form as a user that helps these teams building user stories and ultimately filling the software requirement document. So we're going to hear about this first sort of group that pioneered the survey and how the experience went, with the intent of, primarily understanding lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work, what we still need from the community, and how we can improve this process. So with that, Marcus, take it away. I don't hear you. Are you speaking? Not yet.
Yeah, I've double
Now I hear
clicked. Thanks so much. Sorry for that. Thanks so much for the introduction, Federica. So I'd like to give you some insight about the experiences from the requirement solicitation process and the interviews on behalf of two teams, two in-kind teams, the OPM and the DOSH team. And so the DOSH team is from Zagreb, Croatia, and we are the OPM team, Janis Chapas and myself, here from Heidelberg in Germany. And thanks so much from the team for supporting that. Hope I haven't forgotten anyone. So just to put that again into context, and this actually nicely fits into what we've just seen, we were gladly taking the opportunity to take the IEEE requirements engineering course. And as part of the typical steps of that, we have these 4 steps, and Federica has just shown us step 3, the SRS document, the requirement specification. And now we are going back to square one, actually, the solicitation. So we are actually talking to people, trying to figure out what is needed, develop user stories. And that is what we'd like to talk about techniques and the experience that we had as part of that. Also, we started with the SRS documents for our projects, and of course we also we're giving some feedback as part of the software task force. So the idea is to collect and prioritize information from actors, from groups, from users, end users, recipient groups, subgroup leads, etc., in order to get a picture what is expected of us and how we can make that contribution in any meaningful way. And the requirement solicitation, that is a series of interactions, as they would put it on the IEEE course, to establish the problem that's supposed to be solved. And we are basically collecting all the supporting information in order to address that problem. And we've decided, first of all, to talk to colleagues, and that is how actually the DASH and OPM teams actually came together. We had a similar problem, and so we talked to each other first in order to get an idea what is as a test balloon, what is expected of us. And then we came up with the idea, okay, a questionnaire would be good in order to get more information from TVS and from other teams. And after the questionnaire was, and also already part of the questionnaire, we thought in an interview, which seems to be redundant, but it is not, would be a brilliant idea in order to get even a better insight. And so examples from the questionnaire that is still open, and Federica has posted that on the TVS channel. For instance, what kind of Rubin data products are you interested in? We gave a few examples, and most replies are basically highlighting, well, light curves, of course, and a few more. I won't give you the full feedback on that part because I don't want to bias you or those of you who are still interested in taking that survey, taking that questionnaire, or if you're planning to submit observations, which telescopes are you planning to use, and just to give you a selection of answers for most Gemini, some own telescope networks, Chandra, JWST, or NOAO as a whole, as opposed to the part. So the requirement sources that we are trying to get here, established through this questionnaire and also through the interviews, is to establish the list of actors, interested people, define the user goals, get an idea if you're familiar what similar tools are out there. Of course, we did some research, but there's always a second opinion who actually had that, works on a tool that is not familiar to us because we all live in our not in our bubble, but in our respective subfield, which gives us, and so broadening our horizon here is really helpful. Again, the main purpose is develop user stories. The results of the questionnaire, not a complaint, but a huge thanks to all those who completed that. Of the 250-ish TVS members, we had 8 responses on the questionnaire and 2 interviews and 4 more to be scheduled soon. So every response was helpful and to some extent surprising because the personalities involved were giving very different answers and definitely contributed things and aspects that we haven't thought about. as we've already said, this is part of TVS, but there was, of course, we'd like to figure out how what other science collaboration memberships are available. So Desk and the Milky Way is obviously the obvious candidates. It's low number statistics, 8 participants, but things like yes and no answers of the questionnaire are basically giving us some idea. If you trigger follow-up observations, 2/3 of the 8 were doing that. And if there's interested in a web interface for quick look, and the similar pictures or feedback was given. But yes and no answers are not giving us really a good clue how to design the software. So we then went on to design the interviews that we've started, went into it with a positive attitude and also with a certain redundancy in order to get subconsciously from the interviewees more detailed answers on the questions that we had, tried carefully not to bias the questions, and also to avoid simple yes and no answers. So everything that every technique that you have for designing an interview, we've tried to apply here. Evaluated the 2 interviews we had so far, and we're reviewing the answers. So so far, we have 2 main user stories from the 2 participants. One is related to automatic multi-messenger alert. One was giving us more an overview of a semi-automatic variability and by eye inspection approach that also needs to be reflected. And so the idea is now to work on these and to map them to the SRS document. And as Federica and Rachel have said, that is not a one way, it's an iterative procedure. So there are SRS documents, but they are never finalized in a way because you still get feedback in these projects that are there. So one little final remark before I hand it back. The question after what is your preferred broker? What brokers are you going to use? Turned out to be a bit of a contentious issue. And people were either reluctantly saying something or generically say all brokers or the big institutional ones that are in preparation. So that is then, as Alex has also asked already, the elephant in the room, or the memory of elephants, and the part of the memory of elephants in the room is probably the question: how shall we interact with RSP, the brokers, and the respective tools, and how are data rights affecting and constraining us? I can only support that question once more. Okay, that would be all from our side.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions about this? In the chat, we put some links, including the link to the questionnaire. I made a sort of tongue-in-cheek comment that out of 3, I think we have about 325 members in TVS, definitely more than 250, definitely more than 300. And so, 8 responses would be a meager fraction of that community. But as Rachel pointed out, in many cases, the responses represented a group rather than an individual. So I want to encourage both individuals and specifically subgroups to respond to the questionnaire on behalf of themselves or the subgroups they are in, because the questionnaire is still open, and certainly we can benefit from a larger and broader set of perspectives. We also want to encourage the software building teams to talk to the task force, to the software task force, and particularly to the Germany and Serbia team that have already run this questionnaire, to see how they can modify it and use it for themselves when they're ready to run their own questionnaire and collect their own user input. I see 2 hands raised. So Rachel first and Angelika after.
Thank you. And thanks very much, Marcus and the team, for this really interesting results from your experience there. I note that you have that questionnaire still open, and I think it is valuable to consider maybe proposing a session, or actually presenting this at the upcoming PCW and encouraging more responses from the other science collaborations. Gathering requirements is always an ongoing loop rather than a single one and done process. And I think although obviously you need to move on in the development, it's still interesting to gather that input from more people, and that's a great platform to do it.
I support that. Angelica?
Hello. Yes, thank you so much. And I would like also to thank Marcus for excellent presentation, and to actually the DASH team, because we have been inspired by their questionnaire. And as Fed said, we have made our own questionnaire, which somehow reflects the ideas and the points of questions from from DASH community. And I would like just to briefly share our preliminary results, because we didn't have so much time to analyze everything in details. We have up to now 28 responses. We have mainly responses from TVS community, which we are very grateful, and about 30% from AGNs, and then we have some responses, just one from DESK and ISSC. And we actually got scientific interests from domain of variable, mainly variable stars, but also AGN, blazars, AGNs, and young stellar objects, X-ray binaries. And we were also interested to hear for which purposes they would like to use our pipeline, for example. And we can see here, for example, from analysis, a different combination of light curves, either from the LSST, Fermi, Swift data, and we would like to be, how to say, to improve our pipeline in order that can combine light curves in order that we get as much as longer time baseline of the light curves. Also, pulse for determining periods in pulsating stars. Then we have some colleagues from machine learning teams, and also, for example, some searching for periodicities in red novas and progenitor systems. Also, we have some responses from, and we are thankful from brokers, because we would like to distribute the products of our pipelines on the other telescopes. And we also got some positive responses in order that the people would like to test our periodicity pipeline, and we have some timelines here. For example, some people would like to make tests in the whole period, while some other groups would like to test pipeline when it is more, how to say, ready in the later period, around 24 or 25th. We also collected the relevant references of our potential users, where they implement their own pipelines or some other softwares for detecting periodicities. And we are really thankful for our colleagues to fill this such nice collection of references. And we also got the specific details about the range of the periods which can be expected in their samples. And we actually have from several hours periods in order to detect up to 10 or more years. So our pipeline should be actually covering large scale of periodicities, and also in different kinds of objects. And also we have different review of different data, which could be also on which could be applied our pipeline. So we can see some very famous data sets here. And we actually got some specific comments here. And we would like also to emphasize this, for example, this question, who will provide the computing resources for the calculations. So that is, I think that these questions will be really important, not only for our team, but also for other teams. So I am not sure, can we, maybe we can address this more in breakout rooms or later.
That
So
sounds
thank
great.
you.
Angelica, thank
you.
you so much for sharing all this material. I had not realized you had gotten this many responses and you were so far ahead in the analysis that you could also be ready to present now, since your questionnaire had gone out a bit later. So excellent job to your team. And
thank you.
You definitely did
Thank
something right, because you got 20 plus responses. Let me ask you a question specifically. How do you think you have been able to reach the other science collaboration? Had you specifically broadcasted through other channels other than TVS specific channels, or were they?
Yes, just through TVS channel, AGN, but also
AGN, did you have AGN responses?
Yes, we have about 29%. And because we distributed the form via email, because AGN group communicate via email. So we were not advised to put it on Slack, but to use so we would like to thank for all responses, and as Dragan invited in the chat, we would like to gather more, because your opinion is really important to us. Thank you.
So the link to both surveys that are both still open are in the chat, DASH and periodicity pipeline. There's also videos for both softwares in our collection of videos. Are there any questions about the questionnaires?
Can I just share? It's not a question. I just want to say that what we got as advice from the AGN science community is like to use email. And maybe this is, some people just don't, because there's a lot of communication in Slack. Sometimes they just miss something. So maybe it would be really good to also share just like information by email again. For the
I posted in the chat that, and I think Lavrov made a fair comment, which perhaps our messages got cross-threaded, because we advertised 2 surveys and questionnaires, and I don't know that we have been very specific and deliberate in making clear that there are 2 questionnaires that we would like people to answer ongoing at this time. I think this also calls for some coordination at the TVS task force and leadership level on how we roll out these surveys, so that we make sure that people understand what's available and what they should answer at any point in time, and which software communities are looking for input. So we'll think about a strategy to advertise and roll out these questionnaires as the software builders write them. And more directly to Dragana's point, in my comment, I was like, yes, we will send a deliberate message that clarifies that there are 2 questionnaires that are both open, and we'll send it on TVS, on Slack, and by email. All right, we are about 10 minutes late, so we're going to roll the entire schedule by 10 minutes. The next session on the schedule is your break time and video watching time. So let me post one more time the playlist, the playlist and the link to the, I think this is the playlist. Sorry, one second. How about this? This is again the link to the workshop webpage. The link to the playlist is in the link to the videos is in the workshop webpage. As I stop speaking, I will also specifically send the link to the playlist. Again, there are about 11 videos. They're 2 minutes each, so they're very short. They won't take too much time or too much effort to watch. You have 20 minutes on the schedule for watching the videos on your own time and getting a bit of relaxation. And we'll see you this time on Gather Count specifically because we'll have the breakout rooms. On the software workshop webpage, there is also a map that indicates the various rooms. How about this? We'll ask the software teams which room they are going to take, and we'll compile a document which we'll make available on GatherTown for you to figure out where people are. But also look for them on the chat, look for the name of the software builders on the chat and ask them where they're located, or you can locate them. There is a locate button that will show you how to go from the position where you are to the place where your favorite software builder is. Have I forgotten anything? All right, we will see you in 20 minutes at 12:15 on GatherTown. Keep an eye out for links on the TVS Slack.
Rach, I'll send you in direct on Slack the correct link to the pipeline. I think I maybe sent some one which is editable. I'm not sure. Sometimes I just get messed up with the links.
Okay, no problem. The link I see that you put it in the chat screen. Is that the
that
right
should
one?
be the one. Yes. That's
Okay,
exactly
perfect.
the
I'll
one.
use that one.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Thanks.
So shall I stop the recording for the plenary?
Yeah, let's stop the recording, but